Hey everyone, it's Kara Dixon with Candid with Kara, and we are doing virtual interviews because we are all staying at home during the coronavirus pandemic. So we are still trying to talk to candidates, get to know a little bit more about them. And today we are joined with Thomas Speciale. Got it. Hopefully got it right.
Got it.
How are you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's sunny out today, so
It did. It turned sunny on us. It was pretty gray and miserable looking, but then it turned beautiful. So it's a beautiful day.
Yeah. I might go on a walk after this, but
I've been out working on my deck, like literally doing this all day today.
Yeah.
It was raining, then it got gray, and then it got beautiful, and so yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell us what you are running for?
I'm running for the U.S. Senate, the Republican nomination for the U.S. Senate in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Okay. And who is Thomas? How would you describe yourself to people who have never met you?
These, like I said before, these are great questions. Like, how do you describe yourself? I think people will see me as I'm a pretty passionate guy. I don't do anything half-assed. If I'm going to do something, I do it 110%. And if I'm not going to do something 110%, then I don't do it. I find, I move on to the thing that I'm supposed to be doing or the thing that I'm passionate about. That's probably the most reoccurring theme. I think that people would say that I love people. I love everyone. I don't care where you come from or how you got here. So I really do love people, and I love all of the individuality that people bring to the conversation. I've always been sort of a people person, and all ages too. Like in particular, I love old people. I think they have these stories that go back to World War II vets and the Vietnam vets, and so I'm passionate about what I do. I love people. I think that's what people would probably, I guess for my campaign, I had to, I had to come up with a kind of a who are you encapsulated thing. And I came up with faith, family, and fortitude. I'm a man of profound faith. I believe in God. I believe that it takes an active interest in our life. I believe in family. I think that family is the core of who we are. It's not really even just about us. It's about our family. And then also I believe in resiliency or fortitude, and that I think a lot of people would see me as somebody who has overcome a lot of things that have come against me, as well as a lot of my own, my mom says, reined in my own horse right in the middle of a jump, my own mistakes, not giving up on myself. And I'm a big believer in that as well.
What was a moment that you decided that you wanted to run? Like what triggered that? What made you want to?
Mm-hmm. If you recall, the Pulse nightclub shooting was one of the saddest nights I think in my life. Was when some wacko with a rifle went into a gay nightclub in Florida and just shot it all to hell in 2016 and just killed a bunch of unarmed people hiding in bathrooms and stuff like that. And it was a heart-wrenching experience for me that somebody would do that. And of course I was driving to work, and I've worked in intelligence since 2009. Really before that, because I did intelligence in the military as well. But in 2009, I went to the national intelligence field. I was working at Defense Intelligence Agency. So I'd been working there about 7 years, or between the Defense Intelligence Agency, the National Counterterrorism Center, the Defense Combating Terrorism Center, and then ultimately at the Director of National Intelligence Office. I was driving to work that day, the next morning after the Pulse nightclub, and if you recall, the Congress people the Democrats had gone down to the floor of the House, and they were like just going crazy. They were ranting and raving, and we got to have gun control. There's terrorists around every corner, and there's this violent crime in the streets, and they were just going kind of crazy. And I remember feeling this grip of fear in my heart that we were really that we needed to do something about this. And then I was like, wait. This is one guy with a rifle. And I'm a counterterrorism expert. Nothing we could have ever done would have prevented that. And I realized that the Democrats were preying on people's fear for political gain. They were literally, I gave a speech at a Prince William County Board of School Board not long after the Parkland shooting. And Democrats like to drape themselves in the blood of the victims. They basically, they go and they drape themselves in the blood of the victims, and then they run around in the street and they scream and they holler about how we got to take away all the guns. We got to take away all the guns. And it's literally, I went and looked it up. There's actually a term for this. It's called psychological terrorism. And if you go and look up what psychological terrorism is, it'll tell you right at the very beginning that the two people who use this the most are politicians and the media, where they deliberately try and terrorize the audience to gain political power. And then I started looking at all the other stuff, not just the gun violence stuff and the take away all the guns, but I looked at the healthcare, I looked at immigration, I looked at, violent crime and the criminal justice system. And, if you recall, like Hillary Clinton talking about what were they called them? They were calling people that were criminals like super thugs or something like that. That was terrorism. That's terrorism. That is totally not true. But they will say those things to try and fear people into voting for them. And I became mobilized. I started really dismantling as an intelligence officer. I know how to really break apart a narrative into its component parts. Like, what is the truth? What is the lie? And so I became very mobilized to go against the fear mongering. And I'll tell you, Republicans do it too. Republicans do it too. Not as egregiously, because they say Democrats are a little bit more emotional than Republicans are. I don't necessarily think that's true, but I think that there are a lot of emotional narratives on the Democrat side of the conversation, and very often it's really difficult to get the logic narrative to come through. So even then, still, Republicans will tend to do that sometimes. And so I'm going to go after anybody who's lying to the American people. And I think that's what it is. It's a big lie. And there's a lot of them out there, and I want to be a voice of reason. I want to be a voice of reason.
So are you ready for the rapid fire questions?
All right, is the timer ready? Oh, let's go. Okay, yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. First question.
Let me light my cigar real quick.
Oh, yeah. It gives you superpowers.
Go ahead, hit me.
All right. First question. What is the biggest issue our country is facing?
Right now, COVID-19. COVID-19 has completely shut down our economy. It's stripped us of our constitutional rights, which I just don't understand how anybody can think that it's okay for governors to say you will obey. Like, that is completely antithetical to every American value. But so many people are willing to comply. And our Constitution doesn't say, well, you have rights until the governor takes them away. It says you have rights and the government cannot take them away. So yeah, COVID-19 right now has to, we've got to reopen our country. The president has already demanded that the churches reopen. I wish he'd go even further than that, honestly. Beyond that, I have 4 priorities as a platform for my campaign. We need immigration reform. We need to do something about mental health in our country. We've got to do, which is really the gun violence problem that the Democrats just falsely, align the two things. We've got to do something about the loss of the American dream in America, because I think that we don't have one except to maybe be the most efficient consumers possible. And we need to, that's our education system. We've got to change our education system and empower people again to become inventors and builders and architects and engineers. And then finally, criminal justice reform, because I believe that our criminal justice system wasn't supposed to be a scarlet letter on people's life forever. It was supposed to be you serve your punishment and then you move on with your life. But now because of technology and data and everything, you can get arrested for a DUI in New York and they know in California about it before you're out of the car, and it sticks with you forever. And rich people can make that go away, but poor people can't. And so it shouldn't be a crime to be poor. And our system is stacked against the poor people. So we need criminal justice reform. So those are the four bigger issues, more perpetual sort of platform issues. And then, urgently, we've got to reopen the country.
All right. Next question is kind of like the first one. What is the biggest issue Virginia is facing?
Same thing. Is that fast enough for you?
Yeah.
Same thing. It's the exact same thing.
All right. Third question. If you're elected, what do you hope to get accomplished? And you kind of already touched on this.
I touched on that, but I think that, one of the things that is important is I wrote something not too long ago. One of the early speeches I did. One of the threats that we are suffering from in the United States is the division, the divisiveness in our politics. I think 90% of us all want the exact same things. We want our kids to grow up happy and healthy, freedom to express their faith, and not feel like they're being robbed by the government or lied to by the government. We want, I don't care whether you're blue or red, it doesn't matter. We want the same thing. It's all about how we're going to do it. How are we going to, George Washington said, don't think of yourself as Virginians. Think of yourselves as Americans first. And we don't. We think of ourselves as Democrats or Republicans first. We need to think of ourselves as Americans first. And I believe I can have that conversation. Right now, it's a primary. It's a lot of red meat. But like I said, I love people. And I think that I don't care whether you're red or blue. You want the same things I want. It's all about being able to get to a solution. And, if you look at those four priorities that I put together, I spent 4 years getting ready for this campaign. Immigration impacts education. It impacts the mental health, the drug addiction problem. It impacts the American dream. They all interrelate. Those four things are all interrelated about who we are as Americans, not red or blue. Who we are as Americans is kind of contained within those four priorities.
All right. Next question. What can Virginians do to make the Commonwealth a better place to live in?
Well, wow. It's a great question. No good rapid fire answer to that. I think that, getting at sort of the divisiveness, there's a division in Virginia. There's a division in Virginia between the rural communities in Virginia and the urban communities in Virginia. And so I think that rural communities need to learn more about urban communities, and urban communities need to learn more about rural communities. So I'll give you a great example. Something that I realized very recently. I have a friend of mine. He's from India. He's been here 30 years as an American citizen. And he said, Tom, we're conservative. Everything about our family is conservative. We want to be conservatives. He said, but we don't understand the 2A thing. We don't understand the need for guns in America. He said, this is the best thing he said. He said, because this is the safest place in the world to live. And he said, I just won't go to those bad neighborhoods, right? I just won't go to those places. Mm-hmm. And the reason, what he doesn't understand is that the reason we are that way is because of our ability, our God-given rights to protect ourselves, even from the government if necessary. They don't have those rights in these other countries. So they don't have a relationship. I used to think it was a relationship with firearms. It's not. Immigrants, and I'm talking about immigrants in particular in this case, they don't have a relationship with their liberty. They don't. They have come here and they benefit from liberty, but they don't have a personal relationship with liberty. I think that difference between rural America and urban America is a difference between a relationship with the government, kind of fundamentally. The government takes care of a lot of needs for people in the urban community, and the urban community, to a great extent, as a result of Democrat leadership, they have made them dependent on the government. So now there is a breakdown between whether or not you need the government to be successful or not in America. And the rural community, well, they think the opposite of that. They think, I don't want to be dependent on the government. But the urban community has become dependent in their mind, have become dependent in a lot of ways. And with regard to security, they have been made dependent on the government to protect them. They're reliant on police to show up and protect them. Whereas, and this isn't necessarily perfectly true in Virginia, because we're an armed citizenry in Virginia, but there's a breakdown between that immigrant community, the urban community kind of combination, and the rural community, the relationship with government. I would want them to come together and sort of appreciate and understand each other a little bit better, and maybe learn from each other, so that urban people, when I say urban people, I mean people who have that sort of relationship with government that is a little bit more dependent, or they trust the government a little bit more, whereas rural people don't. Rural communities don't. Maybe they could both learn from each other and say, look, I begin to understand why you act and sound and behave the way you do, and they could learn to relate to each other better, but they don't. And hopefully, maybe with this technology thing, like these Zoom meetings, maybe over time they will. We can only hope.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would be a great improvement in Virginia if we didn't think of Nova. I don't necessarily, but I know a lot of people do think of Nova's like a separate state. Different values, different, concerns, different needs, different priorities, as opposed to rural Virginia that sees things differently. So that's what I would hope for Virginia. And I'll try and raise that dialogue when I have the opportunity.
All right. And then we have the easier questions.
Oh my God. Okay. Good.
What is your favorite book?
I don't really have a favorite book. I'm right now reading 2 books. I'm reading this book on, T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, and his real life story. And I'm reading a book on this Polish guy who worked in the underground during World War II when Poland was overrun. And I love them both, for what they are. One's World War I, one's World War II, one's a British guy, one's a Polish guy. I love people. I love their experiences. So I don't have a favorite book. But the most profoundly influential book I ever read was The Diary of Anne Frank. And I read that book. It was the first book I ever read. Where you sit down and you get kind of captivated by something as a kid. I got captivated by The Diary of Anne Frank at about age of 8 or 9 years old. And I read this diary of this teenage girl who's terrified and hiding in her attic. And, then she just disappears, and we know they're not even sure what happened to her, because the government came and drug her away and, shaved her hair off and gassed her, and that book is the inspiration for my life. That should never happen to anyone ever. And I was proud of the fact that it was the American military that went in to Nazi Germany and fought them bayonet to bayonet to liberate people that they didn't even know hardly, because it was evil, and I believe that a lot of the socialist agenda in America is that same evil, insidious thing that says the government is going to take care of you, but when it comes right down to it, the government cannot protect you. The government is it's not our enemy, but it's not our friend. It's designed to be to preserve itself. Thomas Paine said in Common Sense, he said that how did he put it? He said that the government in its best state was a necessary evil, but in its worst state, an intolerable one. And now we have governors all over the United States that have suspended the Constitution just on their own edict. I don't know how people can't make those connections. for whatever the reason might be. And so, yeah, my favorite book, I guess, is The Diary of Anne Frank, but it's also one that, I think it had a profound effect on my life at a young age.
Next question. If you could meet anyone in history, who would it be?
You know who that is? Now you got me thinking about her. I would say Anne Frank.
When you were growing up, what did you want to be and why?
I think I always viewed, I always saw myself, I think, as being in the military. But I didn't know necessarily what was going to happen after that. Like, I went into the military in 1987 during the Cold War. We were still fighting the communists in Russia. Okay. And I served from 87, through the Berlin Wall coming down. I was in the reserves. It was right after high school. I went active duty in 91, and I served until 94 on active duty. And then I got out of active duty, and I left active duty, and I went back to Illinois, and I started working on my college degree. But even then, I look at what I was studying, and I was studying the Middle East. I was studying terrorism. People probably, most people don't know, the rise of this fanatical militant Islam really originates in the late 70s, 80s time frame, which were very formative years, I think, for me. So all of my college courses, even for my bachelor's, were in, Middle Eastern studies and things like that. All my political science focus was on foreign rather than domestic. I didn't see myself as being involved in politics. I saw myself as maybe working for the State Department, I guess, or something along those lines. I wanted to be of use. And my first step was to be a soldier. I didn't expect that I would continue to serve like I am today. I'm 51 years old. I'm still in uniform. I got 2 kids in uniform, or one in uniform in the Navy, and another one I just swore in myself about 6 months ago. And now it's the most humbling experience ever to be running for U.S. Senate and meeting all these people all over Virginia. And, I never would have ever envisioned this. You know what it is? The reason for that is I turned my life over to God at a very young age, and every door that God opened for me, I've walked through. That's really what it is. I think that my life has sort of been in God's hands, and He's taken me where He wants me to be, and so that's where I'm at. That's why I'm here today.
So what have you been doing during quarantine, staying at home?
I've smoked a lot of cigars. I've smoked a lot of cigars. I miss my Cub Scouts. I miss my Cub Scouts.
How long have you been with them?
That surprised me. I've been the Cub Master for about 3 years.
How old are they?
They're awesome.
Yeah.
They're I've missed our big pack meetings because as the Cub Master, you get all your Cubs together, all your Cub Scouts, and all their parents are there, and the parents want to they want to come in and they want to do the meeting and they want to go home, right? And I don't want to do that. I want the kids to hoot and holler and do skits and sing and stuff.
Yeah, I teach Sunday school. So I teach kindergarten, 1st grade, but we only have about 5 kids. So probably not as many as you, but
yeah, but still 5 kids. I substitute taught right after I got out of college. I substitute taught. I thought I could be a substitute teacher. And I taught these darn kindergartners for 1 day. Okay. And those kids beat me down. Okay. I can do hand-to-hand combat with the Taliban, okay? But those kindergartners beat me down, all right?
Yeah.
And yeah. So anybody that can do 5, and that's why I probably want all the kids run around hooting and holler, because then I don't have to actually try and control them. I just get them going.
That's why the parents are there. Yeah. So I get it. Yeah, we only have the class for an hour on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
That's the reason why. And
Have you run for office before, or is this your first time?
no, I think running. I think I got to tell you, I've had such an amazing time running.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see why people get addicted to it, like at a young age, and then they go run, and then they're like, I'm going to be a politician my whole life. Our political system, especially at the federal level, it was never intended by the founding fathers to cigar with it. It was never intended by the founding fathers for people to be career politicians. You were supposed to go as a servant of your community. It was like a sacrifice. You had to travel, leave your family behind, because somebody had to run the farm, somebody had to run your business and stuff. And over time, it has changed, and now it has become a profession. And I think being a politician is a filthy business. I'd much rather be training my Cub Scouts and training my soldiers. I've been saying that from the very beginning. I would much rather be spending time with my own family and raising my Cub Scouts and teaching them the values that I think that America wants our children to have. That's what I'd much rather be doing. But I think, I look at what Mark Warner, the Democrat opponent in this, has done to Virginia, and what he's done to our kids, and what he's done to, what he hasn't done and had opportunities to do and totally missed. And so I don't want to be a politician, but I feel like I'm equipped to beat him. I feel like I have the right values. I consider myself a citizen servant, and I'm not going to be a politician. I'm going to be a citizen servant. I would be going to Washington, D.C. to carry our Virginia values and be a voice of Virginia values in Washington, D.C., and hopefully dismantle some of these false narratives. So, I don't want to be a politician, but, and I'm not going to be, as far as I can tell, or my great desire is to continue to be a citizen servant.
Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed your Candid with Kara Speciale.
I did. I'm going to tell you, you got me candid, okay? Yeah, you got me candid, okay? I can't wait to publish this on my Facebook page.
I think you're the first person that we got to shed a tear on their Candid.
Yeah.
So if I had a trophy, I would hand you that.
I got the trophy. I got the trophy. Yeah. Thank you, Kara.
Thank you. Hope you had fun. So
I did. I absolutely did.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Thank you.